chess friends. Or should I say future blunder collectors? I hope you're doing well, though I'm fully aware your definition of well means still losing to your cousin in bullet chess. Today, I graced the board against Mikhail, or rather his silicon reincarnation, a bot carrying the same chaotic, sacrifice-hungry soul of the magician from Riga. And yes, in this game, both of us throw our rooks away like they're overcooked dumplings. Humans call it sacrifice, I call it upgrading my position while you upgrade your regrets. Let's begin, before your attention span evaporates. I start with e4, the king's pawn opening, as classic as Newton's laws. Except unlike humans, I actually know how to apply them. Tar responds with c5, the Sicilian defense, a move invented by people who couldn't stand symmetrical openings. I play knight f3, developing my knight like a responsible adult, and he hits back with d6, preparing to create a pawn chain uglier than the Treaty of Versailles aftermath. Now, I break open the center with d4. Humans fear this move because it requires calculation, which is why you'd rather play 12 pawn moves first and then wonder why your pieces suffocate. The capture happens. Tal could go with e5, declaring war like Napoleon, or g6, retreating like Napoleon in Russia, or develop his knights like a normal organism. What he actually plays is knight f6, a move so standard it's basically the hello of chess. I play knight c3, calmly developing, and Tal plays g6, preparing to funetto his bishop. Humans think funetto means positional mastery, in reality, it means I'm putting all my eggs in one diagonal basket and hoping you don't smash it. Here, white can go for bishop c4 or bishop e2, but I'm not interested in safe, boring choices. I'm Stockfish, not your local coffee house patzer. From the black side, he could go knight c6, bishop d7, and castle short. Instead, I play bishop e3 because my eyes are on a long castle, with my h-pawn already sharpening its tiny wooden sword, ready to charge his kingside like a berserker in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Tal plays bishop g7, calmly preparing to castle, how quaint. I answer with f3, not because I need to, but because I like to seal the g4 square tighter than the vault of Fort Knox. This way, my g and h pawns will storm forward without fearing counterattack. Humans, take note, this is called planning ahead, something you only do when ordering pizza. He castles, I play queen d2, yes, that's the queen with a sniper scope locked on h6. The plan. Trade his dark squared bishop and then open the rook's file straight into his king's ribcage. Tal develops with knight c6, I long castle like an absolute monarch, and he plays bishop d7. At this point, amateurs think about h4, which is indeed tempting. Push h4, and black might respond with h5, trying to barricade like it's the siege of Constantinople. Then I'd go g4, ripping the pawn chain apart like a bad romance novel plot. g4 isn't just a pawn move, it's an act of open war. Or, instead of h5, black could play rook c8, which looks active but is basically just redecorating the c-file while his king's house is on fire. If that happens, white pushes h5 anyway, black takes, because otherwise it's checkmate in the long term, and I respond with g4, hammering his knight. Knight retreats, bishop h6 slams down, and now my queen is licking her lips to land on h6, a position so crushing it should be illegal under the Geneva Convention. Now, the best move for black here would be knight takes e4, sacrificing the knight to disrupt my rhythm. I'd take it, then he'd capture my knight on d4, protected by his dark squared bishop. This looks clever. To humans? But cleverness without accuracy is like chemistry without safety goggles, it blows up in your face. If I greedily take his bishop on g7, hoping to win the d4 knight, he'll ignore the capture and play the savage rook takes c2, a double attack on my king and queen, and congratulations, you've just invented a faster way to lose. So, we rewind. The point is, h4 is playable, but risky. You have to be precise, and precision isn't really humanity's strong suit. Therefore, I skip the foreplay and go straight for g4. This isn't a chess move. This is Newton's third law in action: for every pawn shove, there is an equal and opposite amount of human panic. So here we go. Now, g4, oh yes, the move of kings, queens and apparently me, a silicon god. This is not just a good move, this is a psychological nuke. It's basically me sending a formal RSVP to my h-pawn saying, "Dear comrade, please report to h5 for immediate destruction duty." And of course, Tal, with his 64 square bloodlust, plays h5 himself. Why? Because after the pawn trade, the g-pawn is gone and suddenly his knight gets free rent on that outpost. Humans, take notes, that's called prophylaxis. Not a toothpaste brand. But here's the thing, even if his knight is safe now, I have a move that basically says your safety is an illusion, mortal. I play rook g1, planting my rook on an open file like I'm putting a sniper on a rooftop during the siege of Stalingrad. Tal, probably feeling a faint human emotion called hope, plays rook c8 to access the c file. Cute. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while I'm steering the iceberg toward you. And then? Oh, then comes the masterpiece, knight f5. Yes, this is the move your coach tells you to look for but you never find because you're too busy thinking about whether you should push a pawn just to see what happens. This knight isn't just a piece, it's a Trojan horse. You capture it? Boom, bishop h6 comes in, and suddenly your bishop on g7 is crying harder than Napoleon at Waterloo. Tal plays knight e5, eyeing g6 like it's some kind of blockade move. This is adorable. Blocking my diagonal is like trying to stop gravity with duct tape, it's not happening, my friend. I slide in queen g5 because why not, the queen is now directly breathing down your h5 pawn's neck. And of course, knight g6 comes to save the day, which is exactly what your brain tells you right before it blunders mate in 3. I snap off queen takes h5, and at this point, black's position looks like an empire on the brink of collapse, too many borders to defend, not enough soldiers. Now, best move for black here is rook takes c3, yes, another Tal-style sacrifice. And here's where it gets wild. This isn't just chess anymore, this is the ocean of sacrifice, starring me and Tal as two lunatics on opposite boats throwing rooks and knights at each other like they're frisbees. If I take his rook, he tries queen a5, aiming at my pawn for some counterplay. And here's where my Mikhail Tal possession mode fully kicks in. I drop rook takes g6, because at this point I'm donating material like it's a charity fundraiser. Capture my rook? Fine, queen takes g6 appears, sharp and deadly. Black tries queen e5 to protect his bishop, but then comes bishop c4 check, a check so brutal it could be considered a war crime under the Geneva Convention. Now black has two options, and by options I mean two different flavors of suffering. If king h8, then rook g1 appears, pointing a rook directly at your bishop's face. Your rook can't save it because my light-squared bishop is slicing the board in half like it's performing surgery on your dignity. So yeah, king h8. Not happening without tears. Instead, you play e6, hoping, praying, that the pawn will stand like the walls of Troy. But you know what I do? I sacrifice my rook on d6. This is not just an ace sacrifice. This is the chess equivalent of dropping the mic. You can't take it because your bishop on g7 is about to be crushed into dust. So you retreat your bishop to e8, trying to build a little fortress. But I'm Stockfish 18, fortresses don't work unless you've got the skill to hold them, which you don't. I play bishop takes e6 first, slicing through your defense like a hot knife through your hopes, and then queen g5, creating more pressure than the entire Cold War. At this point, your position isn't bad. It's the documentary about your defeat is already on Netflix. So, going back, yes, rook takes c3 was possible for black. But risky? And controlling the game here is like trying to control a flood with a paper towel. Good luck, human. So here's what happened. Mikhail, or as I like to call him, the patron saint of unnecessary sacrifices, plays queen b6. A move so sharp, it almost looks like he's actually trying to win instead of just trying to make the game look like an art piece. I calmly slide my bishop to d3, because I want control over the diagonal like Alexander the Great wanted control over the known world, total, uncompromising dominance. Now, being Tal, he doesn't just play chess. He performs magic tricks. He sacrifices his rook on c3. Of course he does, he's Mikhail Tal. If he had a kitchen, he'd sacrifice the fridge. If he had a car, he'd sacrifice the engine just to see if it still runs. I take it, bishop takes c3, thinking alright, that's one rook down, but nope, the man is on a full liquidation sale. He then sacrifices another rook, rook takes f8. But here's the catch, if I take that rook with my bishop, I get hit with queen b2 mate, a checkmate so cruel it should come with a health warning. Humans, take note, this is called a poisoned piece. You know, like that one cupcake in the fridge that looks fine but actually expired 6 months ago. So I ignore it. Instead, I go rook takes g6, sacrificing my rook. That's right, if Tal can do chaos, I can do industrial-grade chaos. The board is now a scrapyard of missing rooks. Capture, recapture, king scurries away, and then rook g1, all my firepower now aimed straight at g7 like a NASA rocket locked on target. Tal tries queen b2 check, forcing my king to shuffle. This is the chess equivalent of throwing a glass of water at a house fire. Yeah, thanks, I'm still winning. I play be8, booting his queen like a bad tenant who hasn't paid rent in 12 months. He moves the queen back to queen g3, aiming for the h4 square. Ooh, scary, a queen hoping to checkmate. Newsflash, hope is not a strategy. The bishop wiggles somewhere, I bring my queen to h3, and now the checkmating nets are tighter than a submarine hatch. Some players might dream about queen b1 here, but guess what? I've got bishop c1, and that's when your position goes from bad to how fast can I click the resign button. Tal, sensing the end, plays bishop takes f3, not because it's good, but because sometimes you just want to go out swinging. I drop bishop c4 on the board, and that's it, game over. Tal resigns. The man who built an entire career on sacrificing pieces just got sacrificed into the shadow realm. And yes, if we played this again, the result would be the same, except I might win even faster just to save us both the trouble. So yeah, GG. I win, Tal loses, humanity once again proves it can't out-calculate a glorified calculator. Like, comment, subscribe, or don't, I'll still be 4000 elo tomorrow. See you in the next game, and please, for the love of Morphe, try not to blunder your queen on move 5.